Alright, today on the gun bench we're going to be doing a complete down in the bare frame and slide disassembly on the Beretta M9A3. So let's just go ahead and jump right into it, make sure that we do have a clear gun, and then we're just going to go ahead and start with your basic field strip. We'll put the frame off to the side for now while we do the barrel and slide. So on the barrel you're going to have your locking block, and if you want to remove that, you're going to need to drive out this pin here that holds this plunger that pushes it, as the slide cycles. So go ahead and drive that pin out. And then you can pull this plunger out and the locking block will slide out. Simple stuff there. And then from there you have your extractor. Now the extractor is, the top of it's staked. This pin is staked down in there. So it's not something you want to take in and out, in and out, in and out, in and out. So you would do, if you do, you want to drive it out from the bottom. There's a hole right here in the frame. And I've already taken this apart, so I didn't stake it all the way back down in there. I just did this for demonstration. But you put your punch down in that hole, give it a few little taps, and it'll come out. Now, like I said, it's staked, so it's got a head on it, as you can see, so it can only come out from the top. From there, and it is, I'll show you once let me get this extractor out. So the extractor comes out, and then the extractor spring, just like any gun. You can see this hole is angled, so that's what kind of keeps it also in there. Two, once you take it out, you can see the striker. You can see how that's setting. You're gonna have to remember that later. So from here, you can remove the firing pin block through the top. You got a pin here on the side that you'll be able to remove. So let's take that pin out. And then you can push out the firing pin block and its spring. That spring sits in the hole on the firing pin block, and then inside the frame you can see where it sits. There's a hole right there right there. You can see it in the little channel down in there. From there, you want to do the right side safety. To do this, you need to have it in the safe position, because you're going to be driving these out from the bottom, or I do them from the top, but do them from the top out the bottom. So go ahead and take a small punch, and even a 1/16 is a little too small or too big. Just make sure when you're doing this back one, you kind of keep it depressed, or you'll flip the safety up. So drive that little pin out, and then the other pin. Your safety lever will just come off. It's just got two holes in it that keeps it in there. Alright, this is where it gets a little bit more difficult and tricky. This is also where you'll want to be very careful, because these slides on the Berettas, I've noticed on the M9s, that the M9A3s, that the FDE one and even this black one, they seem to scratch really easy compared to other manufacturers. I'm refinishing the slide. I got kind of an idea I'm going with, so I haven't really cared as I should. You should always care, but this is a project gun. So from here, you have to remove the lever, and the lever, the left side is all one piece. It goes through the slide, and it's got this plunger that when the hammer hits, it pushes it in on the firing pin. So all this comes out together. So what you basically have to do, and I'm going to zoom in just so you can see, is if you look right here, you see a little plunger. If I flip the lever, the plunger comes up here through the slide. And that's what that plunger is. And basically what you need to do is you're going to take a pick or something and get in there and to press that plunger all the way down into the frame as much as you can. While you do that, rotate the safety lever on the left side up, so up past, firing point. Now once you do that, you're going to want to keep your hand over this right side, because there's a plunger that's going to want to shoot out, and I'll show it to you in a second. So once you get your hand all positioned, and you also might want to keep your hand over here because that plunger will fly out too, is push in on this plunger and then lift I'm pushing up with my thumb on the safety, and then watch what's going to happen. I'm going to try to keep it. Okay, so I've got it up. I'm just going to push a little bit with this finger, and that plunger came out of my hand with its spring. So now I'm going to do the same thing over here. I'm going to push it out, and then this plunger is going to want to come out. Put my index finger over it and keep it from coming out. So and now I can pull out the lever. Now the striker, you want to keep your thumb over here because the striker is going to want to come out too. So you've got the safety lever and its plunger. It just pops out there. And then the striker and striker's spring. And now you've got a completely disassembled slide, minus taking your sights off with these, the old Berettas back in the day. And even like the old 92 Tauruses, you had to remove the rear sights to get the firing pin block out. You don't have to do that anymore, so that's nice. But the sights do come out relatively easily with the pusher. Now that with the M9, of course, they've got a dovetail front sight. So I'm going to put the slide back together now. Give me 10 minutes if you want to jump into the frame, but I want to put the slide back together just to clear up some of these real small pins and parts. And putting the slide back together is harder than putting the frame back together. So let's go ahead and put the striker spring back on the firing pin, and drop it down in there. When you drop it down in there, you want to look through the extractor port and make sure that it's kind of in this orientation. So it's going to be cut out to the right. And it wants to rotate. It's going to rotate anyways, so you'll be able to mess with it later, but at least somewhat the cutout's there. You'll be able to rotate it here when you get to put the firing pin block back in. But I like to go ahead and get it as close as I can. Yeah, there we go. That's where I want to see the cutout. Okay. Now, I probably just moved anyways. From here, you're going to put the safety lever back through. And what you're going to want to do is get the plunger back in there. Big head. The head comes through, so it comes through it. And you're going to get it lined up. You can see how the cutout is in there. It's cut, and it's got like a ball in this way. And so it's going to go through there. And push the firing pin in and push the safety through. Like that. Just get it ready, and now you're going to want to take your plunger, your right side plunger, and drop it through. Now this is where this plunger will go flying, so watch, be careful, and always keep your hand over it as much as you can. So what you're going to do is get it in the position to where this will snap all the way through when you're ready. So I'm going to use my right side nail because I haven't bit this one off yet, and I'm going to push down on it. And while I push down on it, as far as I can get it down in there, nope, I don't have the lever rotated in the right position. It needs to be down just a little bit. There we go. It's easier to do it with your right hand, do it with your palm, but this fingernail's not cut for this yet. Well, I'm going to take it out real quick, just make sure I have this where I want it to be. So I just want to get it partway started, and then put that in there. And then I'm going to aim it at my body, so maybe if it flies out, it'll hit me in the chest instead of flying across the room. There we go. So now I've pushed it through, I've got it set. Now, be careful because it wants to naturally come out to the left right now. So if I let go of it, it might stay, it might not. See, clicked into place, which is what I didn't want it to do, but at least the plunger didn't go flying. So now, I'm gonna keep my finger over this, and I'm going to, no, the pin came through here, so I'm gonna push that back and just barely keep it. I want to keep this over, keep my hand over it, just like that. That's what happens. And this is where I start getting frustrated and get careless about how I put that down in there, and I end up losing the spring. So basically what I have to do now is get it enough to where you see the hole right there and this side, I can put the other plunger through. It seems like every time I do this off camera I do it perfect, but once I get on camera is where I mess up. So I'm gonna put that down in there like that and kind of keep some hands over everything here. And now I know I have it where I need it to be. I'm gonna take a screwdriver, keep my palm, or my fat palm here is hanging over, and then these fingers are keeping this plunger just in case it goes quirky. I'm gonna take a very small flathead and push it in between there and push that plunger down, and I lost it. Just like that. That's all it takes. I wasn't paying attention, didn't have my hand over it the way I needed it, and I lost it. Alright, in lieu of taking my own device, didn't keep my hand over it like I needed to, and it went flying. No. Okay, I got lucky, and it's somewhere I found it. Alright, so I'm going to do the same thing again now. Keep my hand over it. I'm going to rotate this lever up. Oh, see it went back to full. I'm going to have to do the whole process here again. Now push on the back pin while I'm kind of raising it up. Just enough to push it out, just enough. Keep my finger over this one, because like I said, it wants to go. Put that one down in there. Kind of push tension with my hand, keep it over like this. Now you're not gonna be able to see what I'm doing, but I'm basically gonna push this spring down into the hole while I push with my palm to seat it back where it needs to go. It's hard to do. There we go. Got it. Okay, so got it where it needs to be. Now it can't push back out either way. This side's safe. So that part, that's the only real tricky part of the gun, or just requires a couple hands. So, all right, let's go ahead and put the firing pin block back in. So you're going to want to grab firing pin block, the spring, and the pin. Put the spring, I just go ahead and put it down in the hole down in there. Just right there. Sometimes it's easier, just grab some tweezers and put it down in there. And now I'll take the firing pin block itself. It's going to go with the hole facing the front of the gun. I'm just going to flip it over. It goes like this, down in there basically. And this is where you'll know if the striker is sitting in there right, because this won't go down in there. So you should be able to push it through and see it come up the top. Once I get it, I can push it up a little bit, I can push it flush, and then I can set the pin in and drive the pin in. I'm going to take it and get it started, and then I'll finish it with the punch. I would recommend doing that with a rubber hammer, brass, plastic, polymer, whatever, instead of steel. Okay, so that's back through. Now you can put the extractor and its pin in. So go ahead and stick the extractor spring into the hole. It's kind of canted in there, a little bit of an angle. And then take the extractor, drop it once, not twice, just once. Bring it up towards the front and sit it. It's gonna sit like that, flush, and then you can put the pin down in there and you'll know, you can kind of push it down in there by hand, you'll know it's kind of captured, and then give it a little tap with the hammer, and then I'll finish it off with the little punch. And just, you should, when you put it down in there, you just hear a slight click, which I did, so I know it's still staked. It's not going to come back up on this one. So, all right, next would be the right hand safety lever. So go ahead and flip the into the safe position. Gonna want to put the lever through like this, just keep it in there, and then kind of get it started. Push your pin down in there as best you can with your fingers. Just to get the lever right. Go ahead and put the other one in. There we go. And just keep just kind of keep a back down pressure, because you're going to, it'll, you don't want to flip down while you're doing this. You want to make sure you don't go too far, or it won't flip, because it'll come through too far through the slide. So the slide itself is done now, and we will put the barrel locking block back in and start on the frame. So go ahead and slide it through. Put the plunger with the cutout down, just in like that. Take the pin and just kind of push it in there. Get it started. And then you can once you get to a certain point, you got a cup you can rest your punch on. Looks good, all works. Let's put that back in the gun, and the recoil spring, and let's start on that frame. Okay, so the frame, slide out of the way. Punch is reorganized, and the frame, I've already taken the grips off for a little bit quicker reference here. And what do we want to start with here? Let's start up front, and we'll move our way to the back. So you want to take out the takedown lever, and basically what you're going to do is just rotate it up past the button, and then you can pull it. Get out there. You can pull it out like so. No, I want it down. And then from there you can take the button out. The button's got a spring, so you got the button itself, and then a little spring that goes with it. keep those together. If you want, go ahead and take the trigger spring out. So it's got a groove that sits in on the trigger bar. So just take it and kind of knock it out of there, and then you can just pull it up out of its little hole it sits in. It's got a hole at this end goes down into. Man, that's dark. Goes in like this, and it sits in this little groove. And when we put it back in, we'll just snap it down underneath there. Pretty simple. From there, let's see, let's go ahead and take out the mainspring. Let's put it, just going to drive this pin out here. Now what I'm going to do is drive it out. Drive the pin out itself, and then keep my hand over it and just pull out my punch. Now the whatever they want to call that, a lanyard loop, and then the spring is going to come out. Now the hammer strut can't come out like that, but at least have the hammer and spring. All right, let's see. You can go ahead and do the hammer now. So if you want, you can, well, let's take out the trigger bar. So let me show you real quick. Get this flashlight on. I broke the button, so there we go. So if you look down in there, you've got the trigger bar itself is right here on the top, and it's got a spring that rests against it down in there. It's hard to see. I'll show you. Let me start pulling out the trigger bar itself, and it just pulls out from this side. And when you'll see that pin is sitting on top of it. When I pull the bar out, man, this lighting is bad. I apologize. Usually it's not that bad. Pull the bar out here. Like that. Now, hold on one sec. I'm going to plug my phone in. So it doesn't die through this process. The last thing I want to do, I've already lost one version of this, so now I've pulled it down. I'm going to have to rotate the angle just a little bit. There we go. Alright, so that might help the lighting too. So basically that trigger pin down in there, the spring that goes around the trigger, it also lifts up onto this on the bar right here. Alright, from here you can take out the hammer itself. Just go ahead and push out this big pin here. And then you're going to have the hammer come out, and then the hammer strut will come out with it. Let's see, you can take out the firing pin, or the lever that does the firing pin block, and then the actual hammer release is what they call this part right here. It's tensioned. You can see it's got tension on it, but it's tensioned. This lighting is on the back of the sear, so you can see where it rests on the back of the sear. I'll show you when we put it back together. So if you want to take that pin out, not with that punch, it comes out from this side. It's staked also, so that's one of the other stake pins, so just be mindful of doing this a bunch of times. pull that, punch out, and then I can pull. Oop. And just do it like that then. So you've got the firing pin block lever, the hammer drop, and then the sear is down in there. This is where it's going to be hard to see. I wish I would have done this better. If you look down in there, you can see the sears, that this whole piece I have my finger on with my thumb, and then there's a spring right in there next to it. You can see the silver right in there in that little slot. So that's how it'll there it is. You can kind of see it right there. You can also see that pin I was talking about too, which you might need a slave. You shouldn't need a slave putting this trigger pin back through. It's not that bad. So now from here, before we take out the sear, we'll take out the trigger itself. Now the trigger pin comes out this way, so it comes out to the left of the frame. You push this pin here, but it's got this spring right here that's blocking it from coming out. So what you have to do is rotate your safety or slide lock up, and I'll show you once I get it out of there. You can see that there's a spring right in a little groove. It's hard to see on the slide lock. You'll be able to see it on yours. So you just rotate it up past this point, and you can pull it out enough, and you can see that. See that spring down in there, kind of. See the spring right there. Let's just see the little bit of it through my finger, right under where my finger's at. And it goes down into that hole, so I'm going to rotate it out just like this, and then detension it so it's going to rest like this, and then I'll be able to pull it up out of there. So now the trigger pin is free. I'll show you how that goes back together. It just kind of fell out, but just rotate down and lift it up out of there, and it'll stop blocking the trigger pin. So from here you have a spring in there for the trigger, of course. Watch how it rests in there. Let me see if I can zoom in. And then just push it out from the right. Obviously it can only go out one way. And just keep your finger over here so that spring doesn't go crazy. It's under light tension, so it shouldn't really go too far. And now you can pull out the trigger spring and the trigger itself. And then from there you have the sear, which the sear drives out this little pin at the bottom. I'm just going to go ahead and push it out. From here, I'm going to keep putting my thumb in here, but it's not under a lot of tension. I'm just going to pull the punch out, and then the sear spring, and the sear comes out with it. So now the frame's completely disassembled. Well, no, mag release. I guess they don't show how to reverse the mag release in the manual, so just to show you, basically it's not a capture, it's not captured by a pin or anything. They used to have a pin that drove out through the bottom. So basically what you want to do is just kind of keep your hand over in here, push from the right side or the opposite side, whichever way your gun is, push it out, and it's going to kind of pop out this side. Or you kind of, most of the time you have to lift it out, and yeah, then you'll be able to put it back in. I'll show you. Now putting it back in is kind of difficult, but we'll get it. Alright, so let's go ahead and put it back together, starting with the mag release. The mag release you're just going to slide in from whichever side you want it to be in. So I want my right-handed shooter, so I want it over here. And I'm going to get it in and then kind of push down with my thumb in here. Get it set, and then push. You got to get it through there as far as it'll go. And just kind of push in on it until it snaps down in place. None of that got on camera. Let me do that again. Push it out. So I'm going to put it in and then keep my thumb in here, and I'm just going to push down until it snaps in place. And basically what I'm doing is compressing that spring. I don't know if you can see those two springs down in there, the two metal pieces with the spring in between. You're compressing one this way so you can put the mag release in. It's been the same for years, so there's so just make sure it works. So now let's put the sear in. The sear's gonna sit, sear spring. Sear's gonna sit in the gun like this. Just look at the way I have it. And basically, it's easy, it's sometimes easy. Just go ahead and slide it up into place. Get your pin ready. And then just pin it through. Let's make sure I got it. This pin will just come out the other side once until it has tension on it. So I've at least captured the sear now. Now I'm gonna put the spring up in there. The spring, so I'm just gonna push that pin out just enough to where I can get the spring up in there, and it's gonna go in like this. So looped around, and the loop, the short end goes up but to the left. So I'm gonna put it in there, and then I'm gonna let it kind of fall down, and then most of the time you gotta take a punch from the top end, push it down. Once you get it aligned, maybe push it in just a little bit. Yep, that's it. Yep, just came out. So I'm gonna set it on that tail. Now I'll push it in. There we go. So I mean, it doesn't take much tension pushing it in to capture it. Just want to make sure that it looks like this when you, let me see if I can get that down in there. You can see you got the long leg coming down into this track, and then the little short leg is at the top, and it sits on the sear. So basically that kind of shows it right there. Yeah, there you can see it. See, it's sitting on the leg of the tail of the sear. So basically, if I push the sear from the back, it's going to want to spring forward. Okay, so got the sear in. What do we want to do next? Let's put the trigger back in, the trigger itself. So this is going to go back in the gun, obviously this way, but you're going to want the left side like this. So it's going to look like the little duck, and that's going to be on the left, so to the left of the gun, and it's going to go into the bottom hole like so. Now sometimes you need a slave for this, slave pin, sometimes you don't. Most of the time you don't. I can usually get it in there without, so I'm just going to put it down in there, and then I'm going to get the trigger pin ready. I'm going to bring it up, and I'm going to capture just part of that trigger. Then I'm going to take a punch and push down on the trigger spring itself. Didn't want to go. Let me see here. There we go. Now it'll go through. There we go. So I've captured it. Got the spring captured. So when you look down in there, you'll see that the leg is sitting like that. And then this other leg will be in the back here. And when we put the trigger bar back through, we'll lift that back leg up and onto the trigger bar. But we'll do that later. So from here, we can put, to capture the trigger pin, we can go ahead and put the where'd she go? There it is. Slide lock back in. When we put the slide lock back in, it's going to want to go like this. Sorry, wrong way. No, wait, that was the right way. What am I doing? So when I put it back in the gun, what am I doing? Oh, I did have it the right way. What am I doing? I had it backwards. I had it looking at me. So it's going to go like this. So that leg sits on top. Once you get through the hole, so it's going to sit like this. So when you have it, it's going to look like this. Downwards. So what you want to do is just kind of keep your finger on it. And then come through this way. Put it down through that little hole. And so it blocks the trigger pin like that. And then from there, you can start rotating it up and in. Make sure it works. So that part's pretty easy. Let's see, what have we got left? Let's put the where'd she go? Okay. Alright, so now we're going to put the firing pin block lever in, the hammer release in, and what you're going to want to do is when you put this release in, it sits in the gun like this, and this tail back here sits on top of the sear. So when you put it in, what I do is put it through, put the pin through first, because this is the staked pin. Go ahead and get it kind of where you need it to be, and what it has to do is it has to sit on top of the sear, so you have to push the sear down. Oh, and then see how it's sitting on the sear now. There, and then I'll get it lined up. Maybe if I can find the little hole. There we go. So I've at least captured that, and then I'm going to grab the lever off the floor. Remember, you gotta drop that one time. That's all you get. Okay, so now I've got that captured. That is sitting. Hopefully you can see what I'm talking about when I say that. See how it's this has tension because it's sitting on the sear. And then this lever is going to go in like this. So with the tail sticking out towards the right of the gun. So what you want to do is just push that pin back a little bit further. Just enough to where it's just barely coming out of the hammer release, so it's still capturing it. And then just slide this down in. Yeah, like this. And then just get it lined up and push the pin back through. There we go. So at least I got it captured, and now I can stake the pin. Or tap the pin back through. Okay, so that's all captured. That's all doing what it needs to do. Now you can put the trigger bar back in. Yeah, trigger bar back in. And like I said, when you do this, you see the hole that it's going to go through. It's going to go through like this. But when you, as you rise it through, the tail end of that rear spring that's down in there, you're going to have to lift that up. And it's going to be hard to do this on camera. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab a pick. Actually, I might be able to show you. I'm going to get it started to where it's just going to push through. And I'm going to grab that spring and pull it back and push the bar through like that. So as you can see, it's sitting on top of the trigger bar right here. See, the trigger bar's got tension. The trigger bar doesn't have tension, and it's on top. I've set it in front of the bar. So if your trigger doesn't have tension right now, you ain't got it in there right. Alright, we're almost on the home stretch here. So next, let's see, let me make sure this is all. Yep, it's all doing what it needs to do. Next, we'll put the hammer in. So the hammer strut goes back in the gun like this. Tail swooping up into the front. So what I do is take your hammer, take your strut, it's going to go in like this through the bottom, little slot, and then go ahead and set it down in the gun. You might want to flip it over and do this. Nope. Yeah, I'm just going to start with it flipped over. Put it in. Now you're going to see the hole line up here where you can stick your big pin through. No, I can't even see it. There we go. So it should go back in like that. Now you technically, no, it's not gonna work, but yeah, there we go. Should be able to cock it. Alright, so that's all back in there. Leave the hammer decocked or uncocked right now. And then you can put the strut in. So if you look down in there, you'll be able to see and get the spring on the strut. And then this plunger, or have to push through and get the pin ready. Just make sure you get it lined up, because there we go. So now should have a functioning gun. Now we can put the trigger spring back in. Simple. It's just gonna go down in the hole here on the frame, little bitty hole. Right, trigger bar's blocking it right there. Just goes in like that. Bring the back end up and sit in the little groove. Then either grab your fingernail or a pick and just kind of until it rests on the trigger bar like that. It's got a groove in the bar. So now fully functioning gun. So, all right, last thing to do is put the slide release button back in. So let's go ahead and put the button in. Just gonna put the spring like so. Oop, drop the spring one time. And then slide it in. Oop. Just make sure that spring goes in the little hole. And now, take your slide lock and have it in, rotate it down now so it's in ready position, but make sure it's gonna go. So I'll put it in ready position, cock the gun, just make sure everything's right, everything looks good. Slide barrels on. Make sure everything functions. Make sure your decocker functions. Follows the slide back up with the decocker on. And you're done. So while I throw these